So the other day I was sitting back and I thought to myself, who's the team to beat in the AFC North? See, usually that's a distinction that's reserved for the last winner of the division. But seeing that last division winner was the Pittsburgh Steelers, and well, we know very well how the Pittsburgh Steelers ended the regular and their postseason campaigns. Well, I think that's grounds enough to at least reopen this question, which is, who is the team to beat in the AFC North, and is that team the Cleveland Browns? Well, let's talk about that. But before we talk about that, I want to make sure you guys hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and ding that notification bell so you can be notified. A ton of content coming out in the offseason. Want to make sure you guys check it out. Also, I want to give a shout out to the patreon.com dog check tier members. And as always, I start with Michael Matique, the most dangerous man in Cleveland, DJ, Marino V, Cleveland Cart, Matt H, Greedy Shoulder, Gemini, Liam Freewind, Fight Dirty 74, Yo-Yo, Matt Lloyd, Paul Wilcox, Hundo, Magnifico, Rob Ferron, Kyle Stouffer, Lukey from Munich, Deveroff, J Guy 101, Musty Taco, Joe Bobby, Brad Cabo, Dylon W, James McGinty, Arinda Hall, Rex Kaufman, Chad Gimme, David Maldonado, Andrew Sadeo, Dylan Hill, Josh Bendor, Jalil Salim Jr., Martha Crustnut, Mark M, TJ Showman, Stuart Moore, Bubba Regretti, Anthony O, Cleveland BCI, Robert Jermaine Jr., Dave Mike May, John Cummings, Andrew Hirsch, Curtis Bear, Batman Rush Sharir, Barack Kumar, John Albert, Beerman 069, Masayua, Buds of Roland, James Nemo, Mac House, Reeve Hurst, Philip Wilcoxon, Marie Vibert, Keith Anderson, Sean Barron, Goggles Bizano, Corporal Nick Lopez, Dom Gazillo, Nick Nasty, Ian Williker, Colin 216, Anthony Latham, Christian, Matt Bond, Dave Strong, Michael Stone, Soul Train, Charles Work, Billy, Michael Holdenack, Moose Gentry, Austin Z, Mark Burnett II, Andre Griffin, Otis Wolf, IT Rex, Greg Ehlers, Lydia, Austin Boland, Kirkabard, Jesus Serrano, Chris Fawn, Pickdown, Browns Backers, Mark Kahn, Johan Hulf, Kevin Johnson, Max Aldojo, and Water Bear Marketing. Thank you guys so much for your support. It means a ton to me. It makes this show possible. Again, guys, thank you so much for your generosity. Also, thank you to anybody who is watching through this right now. But now let's talk about the Browns. Let's talk about the AFC North. And let's talk about who is the team to beat in the AFC North. So what I'm going to do, instead of just talking and babbling on about how the Browns are the team to beat in the AFC North, I'm going to talk about all four teams here and kind of present their case for why they could be the team to beat in the AFC North, or why they should still be the team to beat in the AFC North. And then some of the reasons why I feel like, they really aren't, not necessarily in the conversation. They're all in the conversation, but why I don't think they're that team this year as far as right now is concerned. So let's start with the division winner, the Pittsburgh Steelers. Okay, so when you talk about why the Steelers could be still the team to beat in AFC North, you gotta have to look at this from a different perspective, right? Because I think when people look at the Steelers, they go, Ben is old. Their team, a good chunk of their team is old. They played their best football last year, and there's no way they replicate that success. But also, I think what gets buried in that fair criticism of this team is that they do still have some legitimate gems on the defensive side of the ball in TJ Watt, in Minkah Fitzpatrick. They still have some good offensive players, even though their offensive play has been mediocre, especially in the second half of 2020 and onward. But they also brought back Juju Smith-Schuster. They also brought back Tyson Alualu. So as much bad as there is, they were able to kind of bring back some guys you didn't expect them to bring back, which has kind of put duct tape on the leak that they have right now, because they're leaking talent. They're losing players. They don't have Bud Dupree anymore. They're not going to be as good of a defense as they were 2 years ago this year. And that's kind of the source of their issues, right? Yes, the defense is good, but the defense is not really hitting at its peak anymore. So that's an issue. And also the biggest issue is the offense. And nothing they have done this offseason really convinces me that that's going to be any different. Yes, they had a in-house offensive coordinator change. That's not something that typically comes with overhauling changes in an offense. It typically means incremental changes. And again, as good as that defense is, they're going to be handicapped by just how poor that offense is played and how often that offense turns the ball over or just goes 3 and out. And that's the big question with Big Ben, right? That it's Big Ben going to be Big Ben from the first half or second half? I think that it's going to be a little bit of both, right? He's going to be Big Ben from the first half of 2020 in some points. He's going to be Big Ben from the second half of 2020, because what we saw in 2020 from Ben Roethlisberger, I don't think was an aberration. I think it just is more or less the same. It's what he is. Now, it probably won't happen in the same way where he plays like 11 straight good games and then just a bunch of clunkers. And I think people get caught up in that question, is Ben still good? I don't think that's an important question to answer. And see, I think everybody gets caught up in this question with Ben Roethlisberger about if he's still good, will he be as good? What's left of him? Is he done? Is he burnt out? I don't think that's the biggest question. Again, I think Ben's going to be more or less similar to what he was last year. I think he's going to have some of those good moments. He's going to have some of those 4 turnover games. It's just kind of is what Ben is at this point. He's a very good quarterback who can have moments of brilliance, who can also turn the ball over a ton and really cause a lot of stress onto your defense. It's kind of the story on him. As he gets older, it's going to be a worse version of that. The question isn't about who Ben Roethlisberger is going to be. It's about who this offense is going to be and who this offense is going to be built around. And as long as you have the presence of Ben Roethlisberger, it's going to be the same offense that Ben Roethlisberger has run essentially since 2010 in Pittsburgh. It's going to be a pass-heavy offense. It's going to be 30 to 40 attempts a game. This is just what it always has been. And until I have good reason to believe it's going to change, it's not. And as long as that's the case with the Pittsburgh Steelers, there's going to be reason to kind of wonder how good this team can be, because that offense is going to wear down that defense if that's the case, and that's just going to limit how good that team can be. And that's why I really don't think Pittsburgh, while I don't think they're going to go away completely, I don't think they're going to be sub 500 this year, I just don't think they're going to be contenders to win the division. I think they're going to be a team that's going to contend for the wild card, maybe the 6 or 7 seed, but I don't think they're going to be in the race for the division. The Ravens are always an interesting team because, in my opinion, I think they've kind of plateaued from that limitless potential team they were in 2018 and the 2019 seasons, where the future just looked like it could go through the roof with this team. And now it's kind of plateaued for a couple of years. I think teams are better equipped to play them, right? Like, that is definitely a thing. Now, I don't think people have really found an answer to what they do, but they have found ways to mitigate it and limit it to a point to where it can be more effective than it was 2 or 3 years ago. But I think the bigger thing the Ravens are dealing with, more than the league figuring them out, is the offensive line has just kind of been depleted with the Ravens, right? They lost a lot of starters during the course of last year. They don't know what the situation with Orlando Brown and his trade request is going to really be until the draft is over. They have issues with the center position, issues at guard. They're not really set there. Yes, they have Ronnie Stanley, but even he's coming back from injury. And now you have a Ravens team which 2 years ago was one of the best offensive lines in football. But now when you look at the 2021 season, their offensive line where all 5 positions have some question mark about it, whether it's Ronnie Stanley and his ACL injury, left guard, center, right guard, because yes, they did sign Kevin Zeitler, but also Kevin Zeitler is not the same Kevin Zeitler that the Browns reset the market for in 2016. He has regressed or aged since then. And then at right tackle, they wouldn't have a question mark with Orlando Brown, but they do because he's not happy in Baltimore. And that's the biggest issue that Baltimore has. We can talk about their lack of playmakers at wide receiver, and yes, that is an issue. We could talk about the limitations that a Greg Roman offense is going to have, and yes, that's an issue. But the overriding issue, the biggest issue with this team, is the question marks on the offensive line. They added Sammy Watkins, who we'll see if he stays healthy. They have Kevin Zeitler, already touched on him, and those are good value pickups, but it's not really an aggressive pickup. And this is a team with their quarterback in like the last few years of their rookie deal, and it's just weird to see them not be passive, but just not be aggressive in that window. It's kind of odd. This is the period in which the Ravens are supposed to be super aggressive and try to attack that window. And while they aren't getting worse by any stretch of the imagination, they just kind of have stood pat where they are and haven't really improved, but haven't really gotten any worse. And that brings me to my main point about the Baltimore Ravens, is that they're a team that reminds me a lot of like the Milwaukee Bucks. If you watch a lot of basketball, they're a team that can dominate about 70% of the league. And in the regular season, they will win 70% of their games, right? They're never going to be anywhere close to below 500. They're always going to have 9, 10, 11 wins, somewhere around that, because they're a team that 70% of the league just doesn't have a great answer for offensively when it comes to Lamar Jackson and the things he can do. But when it comes to that other 30% that does have more of a appropriate answer for Lamar Jackson, that's where these things start to become issues for the Ravens, and why they always kind of look like a different team in the postseason than they do in the regular season, similar to the Milwaukee Bucks, right? They don't have a ton of versatility on offense, which in the regular season is not as big as a problem as it is in the postseason, where teams can force you to be versatile if you aren't, force you to bend if you can't bend, and then they can break you. And that's what's happened to the Baltimore Ravens, right? They have ended their last few seasons in the playoffs in blowout losses. Ultimately, that's the issue that they find themselves in. That's the area that they find themselves in. They have seemingly plateaued and are kind of waiting and seeing what they can do and if they can get any further with what they have. But I was just surprised that this offseason they weren't more aggressive. And then you have the Bengals, and now we're talking about the two teams I feel like have improved, because while the Steelers have lost players and the Ravens have kind of stood pat, the Bengals are a team that has been actively trying to improve. They've made some good signings on the defensive side of the ball. They got a right tackle for Joe Burrow. They did some things for him. They are trying to improve. But I do think this is a team that is well aware that they're a couple seasons away, or at least another season away from prime time, right? They have a lot of good young players. They have some guys they're going to want to retain, but they have to see, one, what they can get out of Joe Burrow in a full season, and how far Joe Burrow can take them in a full season in order to continue to build around him. I think this is a team that can surprise a lot of people and be over 500, but I don't think they're going to reach much more than that. I don't think they're ready to compete and contend for the division, barring massive injuries for the other teams. So that's what I think of the Bengals. Now let's talk about the Browns. So with the Browns, again, there are three teams in contention, right? When we talk about who's going to be the winner of the AFC North, we're usually talking about the Steelers, the Ravens, and the Browns. Well, the Steelers have gotten worse. The Ravens have kind of stood pat. And now the Browns are making improvements to their biggest weakness, which was their secondary, right? Their defense was a huge weakness. Their secondary was a weakness. They signed a top 5 safety in John Johnson III. They upgraded their slot corner position with Troy Hill. They got a lot of other signings on the defensive side of the ball. And also they're going to get back from injury Greedy Williams, Odell Beckham Jr. That's a pretty big one to get back. And Grant Delpit. So they're adding a ton of talent to a team that had performed pretty well in 2020. The defense was an issue. The inability to get stops in passing downs were an issue with this team. They look to address that, especially at the safety position. And I think they have adequately addressed that. And when we talk about the offense, you talk about offensive versatility. Last year, it really wasn't that much of a problem being versatile. The pass and run were both effective. And now you're going to add another element of versatility with Odell Beckham. You're bringing back Rashard Higgins. So you have one of the most versatile offenses in football. Like, you have duos everywhere on the offense. You have a dynamic receiver duo in Odell and Jarvis Landry. You have a dynamic tight end duo in Austin Hooper and David Njoku. You have a dynamic running back duo in Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt. And you have a really, really good offensive line to protect it all. Like, this is a great offense on paper. This is a very versatile offense, and it was one of the best offenses in football last year. And they're only getting back a guy who at his peak was the best wide receiver in football. So things look good. Things are looking up for the Cleveland Browns offensively. They're looking up for this team defensively. And that's where I'm at. That's why I do think that the Browns are the team to beat. And I know it's going to get flack from other fans in the comment section, but I think it is because of this case. All three of these teams, the way they ended the season, the Steelers kind of got embarrassed by the Cleveland Browns last year, and the Ravens and the Browns both ended their season in the same round of the playoffs. So there's nobody who can claim superiority over the other based on how their seasons ended. The Browns and the Ravens had the exact same record last year, so there's no clear claim to who's the team to beat. And when that is the case, you have to look at what teams did in the offseason, what teams improved, and what teams didn't. You can't really make a great case that the Steelers got better in the offseason. You can't really make a great case that the Ravens did, but you can make an excellent case that the Browns got better in the offseason. And when things are equal, that's the tiebreaker. The Browns, in my opinion, are definitely the team to beat in the AFC North. But let me know your thoughts down in the comment section below. Again, guys, thank you for watching. Have a great day. Have a good night.